Imagine you're a huge Beethoven fan. One day, a stranger appears at your door with a time machine. They hand you the complete sheet music for Beethoven's Fifth Symphony and say, "Go back to 1800. Find young Beethoven before he writes this. Give it to him. He'll think it's his own idea. He'll copy it out, publish it, and it becomes one of the greatest pieces of music ever written." You do it. You go back. You hand young Beethoven the sheet music. He copies it, publishes it. It becomes a masterpiece. But here's the question that should be keeping you up at night. Who wrote it? You got the sheet music from the stranger who got it from the future, a future where Beethoven wrote it. But Beethoven only wrote it because you gave him the sheet music, which you got from the future, where he wrote it because you gave it to him. The music exists, it is real, it is complete, every note is there, but it has no composer. It was never actually written by anyone, it simply loops forever, with no point of origin. That is the Bootstrap Paradox, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The Bootstrap Paradox is a specific type of time travel paradox, and it's different from the one you probably know. Most people know the grandfather paradox. You go back in time, accidentally prevent your grandfather from meeting your grandmother, the loop collapses into contradiction. The Bootstrap Paradox is stranger than that, because it doesn't collapse. It works. The loop is internally consistent. Nothing contradicts anything else. The problem isn't that it breaks logic. The problem is that it breaks causality. Causality is the rule that says every effect has a cause. Everything that exists was made by something. Every event was triggered by a prior event. It is the most fundamental assumption baked into how we understand reality. The Bootstrap Paradox produces something that violates that rule completely. The sheet music exists, but it was never created. It simply is, cycling through time, cause and effect chasing each other in a perfect, closed, causeless loop. The name comes from the phrase, pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, the idea of lifting yourself off the ground by grabbing your own feet and pulling. Physically impossible, causally absurd, and yet, in a universe that allows time travel, apparently fine. The sheet music version is easy to grasp because it's physical. But the Bootstrap Paradox gets even stranger when the thing cycling through time is pure information. Here's a version that's harder to dismiss. You're a physicist in 2025. A time traveler arrives from 2075 and hands you the complete mathematical proof of a unified theory of physics, the holy grail of science, the equation that reconciles quantum mechanics with general relativity, something no one has managed to figure out in over a century of trying. You study it. You publish it. It changes the world. Physics advances. By 2075, the proof is in every textbook, every university, every physics database on Earth. A physicist in 2075 retrieves the proof from those records, gets into a time machine, and takes it back to 2025, to you. Now, who figured it out? No one. The proof exists in a closed loop. It was never derived. Never worked through from scratch, never discovered. It just is. And here is the part that should disturb you. There is no logical reason this couldn't happen. If time travel to the past is possible, information loops like this are not just possible, they may be inevitable. Which raises a question that physics hasn't answered. Could some of the knowledge we currently have actually be bootstrap loops? Information that arrived from a future that only exists because the information arrived. Information cycling through time is disturbing. An object cycling through time is worse. Imagine a gold coin. In 2030, you find a gold coin in your attic. The date stamped on it says 1850. You have no idea where it came from. A few years later, you get access to a time machine. On a whim, you take the coin back to 1850 and leave it somewhere. A drawer, a box, an attic. You return to the present. Decades pass. The house changes hands. Eventually, the coin ends up in an attic. Your attic. Where did the gold come from? Nowhere. It bootstrapped itself into existence. This bothers physicists in a specific way. The first law of thermodynamics says energy cannot be created or destroyed. The Bootstrap Paradox, in its object form, seems to suggest matter can exist without ever having been created. Not converted from something else, just there, always, going around the loop. Either way, the coin has no origin, and it exists. Here's where we leave the thought experiment and step into something more uncomfortable. The Bootstrap Paradox assumes time travel. We don't have time travel. So in the real world, right now, bootstrap loops can't exist. Probably. Because here's the thing about the Bootstrap Paradox that nobody talks about. If it ever happens, even once, you would have no way of knowing. The Beethoven sheet music exists in the loop. It's real, it's complete, it has a history. Nothing about it looks paradoxical from the inside. It's only when you trace the causal chain backward that the loop reveals itself. And most of the time, we don't trace things that far back. The scientific knowledge we have, the ideas that seem to appear fully formed in history, the works of art created by people who claimed they felt like they were receiving rather than creating, that the music just came to them, that the equations appeared in dreams. None of that is proof of anything. Almost certainly all of it has mundane explanations, but the Bootstrap Paradox tells us that if time travel ever becomes possible, in any form, at any point in the future of the universe, loops like this could be seeded backward into time, and we would have no way to tell the originals from the loops. So what does actual physics make of all this? The honest answer? It depends on which theory of time you accept, and physicists genuinely disagree. The first possibility is that time travel to the past is simply impossible. General relativity technically allows for closed time-like curves, but most physicists believe some unknown mechanism prevents them from actually forming. If time travel can't happen, the Bootstrap Paradox can't happen. The second possibility is the Novikov self-consistency principle. Russian physicist Igor Novikov proposed that if time travel is possible, the universe simply enforces consistency. Anything that happens in a time loop had to happen that way. In this model, the bootstrap loop isn't a problem, it's just how time works. The third possibility, and this is the one that really opens things up, is the many worlds interpretation. Every time travel event branches the timeline. The loop only appears paradoxical because you're looking at two different timelines as if they're one. Each of these resolves the bootstrap paradox differently. None of them has been proven, and the paradox itself remains an open problem in theoretical physics. But here's the question underneath the question. The Bootstrap Paradox doesn't just challenge time travel physics, it challenges the deepest assumption we make about existence itself. We assume everything has an origin. We assume the universe began somewhere. Philosophy and religion have been arguing about what that first cause was for as long as human beings have been able to think. The Bootstrap Paradox suggests a third option that nobody likes. Maybe some things simply don't have an origin. Maybe causality isn't as universal as we thought. Maybe the universe allows, somewhere in its structure, for things that simply are. Not created, not caused, just present, cycling, complete. That possibility doesn't just break physics, it breaks the question, where did everything come from? Because it suggests that question might not always have an answer. You started this video with a simple question. Who wrote Beethoven's Fifth? The answer the Bootstrap Paradox gives you is no one, and everyone. And it was always written, and it was never written at all. That isn't a satisfying answer. It isn't supposed to be. The Bootstrap Paradox isn't a problem with a solution waiting to be found. It's a crack in the foundation, a place where the rules we use to understand reality stop working and something else stares back. The sheet music exists. The coin exists. The information exists. Where it came from, there is no answer. There never was one.